Good morning, everyone. If you attended this morning's session on addressing loneliness and social isolation through a circle of friends, welcome back. If you are now just joining us for this session of Age Positive 2020 Revision, welcome. My name is Tina Uridge, and I'm the Executive Director of Clay County Senior Services, and it's my pleasure to moderate this workshop, Programming for a Moving Target. Our previous sessions informed us about the prevalence and negative outcomes associated with social isolation and loneliness, as well as introduced us to innovative programs and resources that we might add to our own pragmatic strategies. This workshop will highlight examples of innovative programs that have been adapted from several local Kansas City organizations to connect older adults to services and programs. Before I introduce our panel for this session, there are a few housekeeping items. Some of you may have heard these before, but all participants will be muted and cameras turned off during the presentations. If you are new to Zoom, click or tap on your screen for the chat feature, where you will be able to ask questions or simply chat or make comments. If you do have questions towards somebody specifically, please ask that person who you want to direct the question to. And also, it's important to know that Mark's Zoom account are HIPAA compliant, so you won't be able to copy and paste information you wish to share. So you'll need to write it down or take a screenshot if you want to keep that information. Of course, these presentations are being recorded, and the PowerPoint and chat conversations will be made available within 2 weeks following the conference. So welcome to our esteemed panel who will speak in this order. If you would like to see their full bios, you can click on the link in the chat box. We have Kathy Armitage. She's the Active Lifestyle Program Director with Platte County Community Center South YMCA. We have Dr. Karen Boyd, Executive Director of Ivanhoe Neighborhood Council. Dianna Englander, Community Aging Specialist, Northland Shepherd Center. Tane Lewis, Evidence-Based Program Coordinator, Department of Aging and Adult Services with the Mid-America Regional Council. And Danielle Wootton, Director of Strategic Initiatives, Kansas City Shepherd Center. Each of our panel presenters will be talking. I will jump in and give them a 1-minute warning when it's time to transition to the next panel. But we will go ahead and get started with our presentation with Kathy. Kathy Armitage.
Good morning. Can y'all hear me? Okay, welcome. I'm here to talk about some of our evidence-based programs that we implemented here at the YMCA over the last couple of years. We've had some bumps in the road since COVID, and prior to COVID, our Enhanced Fitness was one of our highly active programs with 2 classes. This class I really enjoyed. There you go. Can you hear me now? Okay. So it is just one of the evidence-based classes that has been recognized by the Center for Disease Control and Prevention of the U.S. Health Department and Human Services, and it's administered for the Community of Living and the National Council on Aging. So when we implemented this program about, I'm going to say 2012, we started out with 1 program, and it's an hour-long program. We take a pre and post assessment. So before they start the class, we do a pre-test, which involves a sit to stand, 8-foot up and go, and a bicep curl. All of those are timed, 30 seconds. And then after 4 months, we re-implement the class. One of the biggest reasons I like this class is it's an hour long. And during this hour-long class, you can do this either sitting or standing, and you could have the most deconditioned individual to the most highly functioned individual, and you can tailor this class in both realms during the one class. During the hour-long class, you'll have a 5 to 5 to 8 minute warm up. So you're working all the joints, getting people ready to go for exercise. And then you'll go into a 20-minute cardio portion. And then you'll move on to another cool down for 5 minutes. And then you'll go into another 20-minute strength training. And I like this part. All these strength training exercises are for functional movement. So we have 4 exercises for the arms and 7 for the legs, 2 sets to 8 to 10. And as they advance, we do use leg weights, which they can use after their 3rd visit and they receive their fit check. They go up to 5 pounds. So adding the leg weights or the ankle weights has shown much improvement. And then we go into our cool down and finalize with the class. But all during this whole class, we do a ton of balance in the warm up, in the cardio piece, and in the cool down and stretching piece. So we'll start out with our audience doing very basic movements for that. And then as they learn to do those and master those balance exercises, we continue to move outside the box. And our active older adults, because of us moving them outside of the box, we are getting 90% of the retention rate back to our facility. Now, prior to COVID, we decided that when we opened up the YMCA with the space we were limited to, we were just going to do our evidence-based classes and brought them back. And currently, we just have our one enhanced fitness that we meet in the gym, and we have 35% or 32 participants every single time, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So that was a pretty good move on our part to bring back those evidence-based classes because our members truly wanted them and needed them. And coming back from the COVID, which was about almost 3 months, they had really noticed a big portion of their life where they've deconditioned because they weren't exercising. So some of the things about enhanced fitness that my participants also like is the functional movement that they gain, that they can do for their activities of daily living at home, which in all retrospect, our biggest motivation for including our evidence-based classes is so that they can age in place and do these programs here at our facility and stay active into their home. We've also noticed that we're helping with the decrease in their falls. That is a big thing. Every time I do a fit check every 4 months, one of the questions is, have you fallen in the last 4 months? And so if they're not falling and they're regularly attending the class, which is 3 times a week, we are actually seeing a decrease in falls for our seniors. So that's a big thing, a shout out for this class. Another big thing is because of the social isolation, these guys are actually coming in and meeting a little bit prior to the class, again, of course, social distancing in the gym and interacting and looking forward to that. So we have also taken this class and gotten some grant money into some nursing homes. So that we have done that, or assisted living and independent living homes. We've been running this program prior to COVID, giving that opportunity to those participants in those facilities. I'm trying to think of anything else on that one. If you want more information on the enhanced fitness classes, you can go to the YMCA of Greater Kansas City and get more information on that. You can go to my next slide, which is there we go, taking action. This is our Live Strong program at the YMCA. Is once again evidence-based. It helps those with cancer and cancer survivors and their families that participate in this program. We do also do a pre and post test prior to their meeting with us. Doctor's releases are in order that we get prior to them coming in. We also include the family member in this one, and this is so that they can find their new them, because prior to cancer, most of them are not doing the same type of activities that they did prior to it. This class, unfortunately, right now, we are not currently running an active class because of COVID, because they are our most at risk participants. But every time that we run this class, we get scholarship money. It's free for 3 months for those who participate. in that 12-week package. It's 30 minutes a session per week. It is open to non-members also. So going on with that, that's all I'm going to talk about right now. The last thing I will say is that when we did open up here at our facility, we did struggle with our members coming back in, and now our members are coming in. We do all the safety precautions we possibly can, temperature checks, all of that for our folks. They have to answer questions here. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Tina, and thank you for this opportunity for letting me talk about two of these great evidence-based programs that we have at our facilities. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you, Kathy. And now we'll hear from Dr. Karen Boyd, the Executive Director of Ivanhoe Neighborhood Council.
Good morning, and I do want to say what a privilege it is to be able to speak with you in this challenging environment. Slide, please. For those of you that aren't familiar with Ivanhoe specifically, we are a very strong and established neighborhood organization. We have a long-standing history of impacting and supporting over 6,000 residents. The organization was formed by a group of residents during the 1980s and was formalized in the year 2000 as a 501c3 neighborhood association. Since then, we've evolved into a CDC and a CHOTO, and those are just acronyms for a development organization. So in addition to our community engagement and focus on residents, we also focus on affordable housing and revitalization of the neighborhood. Slide, please. Our long-standing positioning within the Kansas City region has been in terms of providing safety and security initiatives and programming largely for seniors, but also moving into families and youth. We have technology-based engagement processes, healthy food, and prevention resource platforms, and daily and weekly support plans. Slide, please. In this environment, the pandemic, we have adopted a philosophy of insulation without isolation, and that is primarily directed at our seniors. We want to make sure that seniors in particular are safe, but also are feeling connected. So we put a high degree of focus through our board members, our staff, funders, community resources, as well as government resources, and our education and training initiatives on keeping folks safe, but also having them feel connected. Slide, please. So we're able to do that in terms of our focus and flexibility, primarily because of our organizational strengths and our longstanding history of resident relations. But that's not without challenges, and we'll talk about what that looks like going forward. Slide, please. So our organizational strengths are really about neighborhood presence, working with residents, our unwavering dedication to seniors, and our committed staff. So you may or may not be aware that we're one of few neighborhood organizations that operate with a paid staff. And I gotta tell you, that's both a blessing and a challenge. As executive director, making sure that we have the resources in place to not only keep our staff paid, but also in a position to deliver the high quality services that we're known for. Slide, please. Our again, in this pandemic, we're putting a specific or a heightened focus on safety first, healthy living initiatives, and in addition to our seniors, we are acutely aware that we have to pivot and provide more what I'll call intergenerational strategies and programming. So it's not just the seniors, but they may be living with family members, they may be responsible for their grandchildren. So it's more of a seniors plus wraparound set of support and services that we are challenged to deliver. Slide, please. So going forward, as we operate currently and in an uncertain environment, we know that there's going to be increasing pressure on our financial resources, our staff capacity, and I'm acutely aware of staff stress and concern when they're out there in a social distance environment, or whether they're talking with folks on the phone or trying to navigate technology or integrate technology into their programming, that's going to be something that we have to monitor and also address going forward. We also are, even without COVID, we are experiencing increased diversity in the neighborhood. Again, multi-generational folks moving into the neighborhood. So we also have to pay attention to cultural relevance and expectations as we deliver our products and services going forward. Slide, please. In the midst of all of that, we know that whatever this new normal is, that we're going to be required to be increasingly flexible to meet the needs of our current and future residents. We also know that our roles and the array of services that we deliver and are called upon to deliver will need to change. And so we're putting listening posts in place so that we make sure we understand what's expected of us going forward. And we remain highly optimistic about the future. We know, I know people are kidding all the time about not having to navigate technology. We know that one of my favorite phrases is we will fumble forward. It will be bumpy, but we know what we're here for, and we'll continue to serve residents, particularly seniors, the best way we know how. So again, thank you for allowing me to provide a little bit of insight into how Ivanhoe is navigating, and it's certainly a pleasure to be able to participate in this forum.
Thank you, Dr. Boyd. We will now hear from Dianna Englander, Community Aging Specialist with Northland Shepherd Center. Dianna?
To continue services during this year of the quarantine and the days to follow. Our COVID experience began in March on Friday the 13th. That was our last day of in-house programming. We were at a loss as to what we were going to do to serve our participants who count on us for so many things. Next slide, please. That meant no break time club twice a week, no caregiver respite for 5 hours on those 2 days a week. Cindy Holm, the director, and her volunteers had been communicating with people through calling them and writing letters and that kind of thing, but they wanted to do something more, so they came up with the drive-through event idea. Next slide, please. The first one was in June, and they prepackaged bags full of food and drink and activities, And the most important thing was there were different tables for each of the volunteers. A couple volunteers at each table with masks and gloves on would present those packages that they had and give a little cheer to the participants and their caregivers. It was a great day. Next slide, please. The Together We Care, and this is, they've had other drive-through events once a month since then. And in July, Santa even showed up and they had a Christmas in July event. Next slide, please. The Together We Care Caregiver Support Group is led by myself and Becky Franklin, who's a licensed professional counselor and older adult educator at Tri-County Mental Health Services. Together we host a Zoom every other week to help caregivers cope and share experiences and challenges. And also we publish a monthly newsletter. Next slide, please. Since we could not meet in person with our caregivers and social isolation was such an issue, we decided to partner with Signature Psychiatric Hospital, Senior Solutions in Excelsior Springs, Monarch Behavioral Health in Cameron, and Soundscaping Source. And there's Rachel, she did the music and provides everybody kazoos. We did a trunk or treat model for our mental health drive-throughs where we had our trunks decorated and pass out information and self-care ideas and coping techniques. Next slide, please. On that Friday, the 13th of March, Paula Zigman, Program and Resources Manager at Clay County Senior Services, and myself were 7 weeks into a 10-week Aging Mastery program. By May 1st, we had finished the last 3 classes virtually using GoToMeetings. We graduated 11 of the 25 who were slated to graduate before the pandemic isolation started. We have another core Aging Mastery program and caregiver class starting next week. We'll be using the Zoom platform because of the ability to break out into groups. Next slide, please. COVID-19 also meant no learning and laughter twice a month, where seniors go to socialize, be entertained, do an activity.
Good morning, Karen Boyd.
Pardon me? Anyway, Terry Tipton and Tammy Miller went, and they'd been sending letters and calling all of the 40 regulars in the program. And on one occasion, they went to everybody's house and gave them a little goodie bag and a whirligig, just trying to stay connected and to make people smile. Next slide, please. The pandemic interrupted our lift and peppy exercise classes that used to meet twice a week. So in June, the group met in the parking lot and did some exercises. Lois Edmondson led that group. Everyone got an exercise band and a goodie bag, and they also had a door prize of the Walk with Ease book that's published by the Arthritis Foundation. Next slide, please. When the pandemic started, people were calling needing food and supplies. So my fellow aging specialist, Kelly Creek, put together an emergency food pantry to be ready for those calls. Kelly also manages the partnership with Harvesters and coordinates the Commodity Supplemental Food Program and Mobile Food Pantry that we distribute food from once a month. In addition, she worked with the Assistance League to provide produce boxes weekly since April through last week. And we would get at least 40 boxes of food, and anybody that needed food was able to come and get a box of produce. Next slide, please. And the Meals on Wheels program never missed a beat. All through the quarantine and up till now and moving forward, they continue to serve 185 hot meals a day on 16 routes, Monday through Friday. This is only possible because of the 90 to 95 dedicated volunteer drivers, and 2 incredible staff. Next slide, please. As a result of this COVID experience, we know definitively that many seniors don't have internet connectivity and or the devices, and a lot of them don't know how to use it. Another basic need to meet was identified, and that was the technology and devices. Currently, we have 7 volunteers who go out and help people on a one-on-one basis in a socially distanced way to use the devices that they have. We're seeking funding so that we'd be able to buy some devices and open a technology resource lab on site where people could come and learn to use technology. Next slide, please. In May, Rebecca Gordon, the executive director, started using MailChimp to send regular newsletters which highlight client stories. We've received at least $30,000 as a direct result. Our major jazz fundraiser was a virtual silent auction. We had a follow-up drive-through barbecue dinner fundraiser where auction winners could also pick up their bounty, which was also a success. Next slide, please. We had a market bus that ran 2 routes of 12 people twice a day, every other Friday, that had to be discontinued. Fortunately, most people have had friends and family step up to get them to the store and places they needed to. Our volunteers, who are mostly seniors, pretty much decided they didn't want to drive people around during this time for their own safety as well as those of the riders. But they have been very active doing caring calls, and we continue to do the call check. Our call check has gone from 30 people calling in once a day to about 15 because of health-related issues. Some have gone to assisted care while others have sadly passed away. Next slide, please. We've managed to help our elderly by focusing on their most basic needs: finances, food, mental health, and technology. We're doing our best to transform our programming as needed to continue to meet those needs. And thank you for your time, and I appreciate being here.
Thank you, Diana. We had a lot of questions coming in, and we will be having plenty of time at the end to ask those questions. Tane Lewis, she is the Evidence-Based Program Coordinator with the Department of Aging and Adult Services with the Mid-America Regional Council. Tane?
Good morning. As Tina said, my name is Tane Lewis, and I'm Mark's Evidence-Based Program Coordinator. I'm a facilitator and trainer of a few of the evidence-based programs, but my main role is coordination and administration of the programs and partner agencies that we support. Next slide. So just as a moment of history, just a good look back, Mark began emphasizing delivery of evidence-based programs in 2018 to respond to the growing needs of our communities as well as our changing healthcare environment. When COVID-19 came to our shores and the stay-at-home orders were put in place, our regional and statewide network had to cancel several in-person workshops like Diana was talking about. Some of them were just temporarily paused and then reconvened later in a virtual format, but many of them had to be canceled because they could not reconvene. So once we recognized that we were not going to be able to meet in congregate settings for an indefinite amount of time, we began investigating which of the evidence-based programs that Mark supports would be available in a virtual format. The National Council on Aging was very, very helpful in convening groups together so that we could talk about the way forward and how we were going to convert these programs to virtual formats. So they launched a forum where we could talk with the program developers and with each other and work out some best practices that were very, very helpful. And then thankfully the developers quickly moved to convert those programs to virtual delivery. So we had a lot of assistance and a lot of support administratively from the licensing agencies and the folks that developed those programs. So we all became quickly students of virtual platforms and had to learn every virtual platform you could imagine out there, so that we could offer different forums for different communities to see who, whichever ones were adaptable best and used best by those communities. As an administrative hub, Mark's role isn't as much as in delivery of the programs as much of it is just administration and coordination. So my role is a little different than the other folks on this panel for that reason. So my role was to communicate with our partners and disseminate guidance from licensing agencies to facilitators and begin to train them to deliver those programs virtually. We initially had to determine the level of technical assistance that each partner would need to transition, and then to provide them with all the support that was required in order for them to move forward. Next slide. So this is just a overview of Mark's vision. We, like I said, began in 2018 to emphasize the delivery of evidence-based programs. So our vision for that is to build a sustainable collaborative network of community-based organizations, providers, and payers to improve the efficient delivery of high-value community-based services. So our mission then now became how to do all that virtually, like you said, like we've been talking about. So next slide. In order to do that, Mark had existing partners in our region, senior centers, social services agencies, things like that. And we realized that in order to reach our mission, we really needed to expand our reach. So we began reaching out to organizations that were already focused on disease prevention and health promotion programs, such as the YMCA, Parks and Rec, that kind of organization that was already in the business of doing this kind of work. And we began reaching out to them and trying to onboard them into our network. So it was a really exciting period of time where we were able to really get to know a lot of our partners in the community that were doing this work. And luckily, because they were already doing this work, it's very easy to train everybody to do the programs that Mark supports. So I'm not going to go into in-depth about any of that due to limited time, but this just shows you, this slide just shows you like how we put that network together, how we fund it, how it works, how you become an agency that's a partner with Mark. We provide the administrative support. We purchase evidence-based program licenses. We purchase or reimburse supplies for those programs. We train leaders. We reimburse completers for organizations that provide the facilitators themselves. And then we also offer quality assurance, monitoring, and reports for funders and oversight authorities like ACL and National Council on Aging, all of those agencies, the CDC. So we have to be able to report back to them how our network is performing. Next slide. So currently, this is the list of evidence-based programs that Mark can support virtually. Not all of our programs have made that transition yet, but these are the ones that have. So you have the Aging Mastery Program and AMP for Caregivers, which Dianna was talking about. You have Chronic Disease Self-Management Education, and that's an entire suite of programs, which I'll show you next. And then we have Tai Chi for Arthritis, which was very helpful, hopefully, to keep people doing some exercising, even if they're isolated at home. And Walk with Ease, which is also a nice program that can be self-directed as well as done in a group format so that folks can at least get some sort of exercises if they cannot go to a gym or to a congregate setting to do those structured exercise programs. Next slide. So this is just an overview of all the different programs that the Chronic Disease Self-Management Education Suite offers. So it includes Building Better Caregivers, clearly from the title, that's as a program that supports caregivers. and then chronic disease self-management program, which is a general program that goes over all kinds of different chronic diseases such as diabetes, heart failure, you name it. It just talks in general because they realize that people with chronic conditions often have the same kind of problems regardless of the particular disease. They come with a very similar gamut of issues that you face. And so then there's workplace chronic disease self-management program, and that is focused more on work-home life balance, stress management, that kind of thing for folks that are still in the workforce but are having some chronic conditions that they have to manage while they're also trying to manage their workloads. And then Tomando Control de su Salud is the Spanish version. And we have just one person so far, a master trainer for that program, and we're getting ready to train 3 more facilitators so that they can launch that program successfully in our communities. And then next is chronic pain self-management, and as that title is evident, it's for managing chronic pain. There's a lot of stretching and exercises incorporated into that program that aren't in the other programs quite as much, and I find it to be a really, really helpful program for chronic pain. And then diabetes self-management program, which is self-evident as and how to handle your diabetes in a healthy way using food, exercise, and just some basic knowledge of what's going to help you get through that. Next slide. So this slide just shows you the different kinds of ways that you can offer programs virtually or remotely, which could be interchangeable, but I've decided for the sake of this forum to describe the remote programs as programs that are not done online, but are able to be done by teleconference or by mail. It's very helpful to be able to offer that for folks that aren't able to participate online. So, but virtually, the programs that I offered on that slide previously, if you remember, AMP, Caregiver, all those programs, those can be done on Zoom, Teams, WebEx, GoToTraining, GoToWebinar, pretty much any of the formats that are out there. We do a little bit of vetting to make sure that they're HIPAA compliant so that we can protect our participants' privacy. And those programs are done through 3 facilitators. So we have our normal 2 leaders that are leading the program, and we have a 3rd person who manages all the technical issues. So they're like the tech assistant for the workshop. They can individually work with participants that are having trouble staying online or able to, help them get through all the glitches that might arise. They also are what we call spotters. So those technical assistants are also watching the webcams to make sure that there's nothing awry. So if somebody falls or has a health condition that has a health issue or an emergency that arises, they can manage that and contact emergency contacts and implement our crisis plan. So it's very helpful. And then on the remote programs on the other side, Chronic Disease Self-Management Education Suite offers most of their programs in what they call toolkits. So you mail out to your participants a self-management toolkit. And so it has all the different self-checking, self-tests, chapter review. It walks them through how to use the book as a reference. And then we just meet and talk on the telephone once a week to guide participants through that toolkit. And then AMP also allows for folks to join the virtual programs via teleconference. If they can't get online and get onto a virtual program, they're able to call in and just do it over the phone, which is very helpful. Unfortunately, the Chronic Disease Self-Management Suite can't be done that way at this point, but they're working on adapting that as well. So it's been it's been a bumpy road, as we all know. It's like we took all of our programs and just had to start from scratch and retrain everybody to do them virtually, and it's been challenging but a lot of fun. And I just wanted to point out at the end of this that it's a silver lining, and we have really needed to do this. It was something I think that we couldn't do on our own because the evidence-based program licensing agencies had to be able to approve those to be done virtually. So we couldn't just willy-nilly do it on our own. But this push, COVID and causing everybody to be isolated at home, forced all of these agencies to make virtual platforms for their programs, and it's a silver lining. We have so many community members that are homebound, don't have transportation, or otherwise just cannot get to a congregate setting in order to do an in-person workshop. So allowing this as a possibility, I think, is going to end up being a real big benefit to our community members and to our programs, our organizations. And even when we reconvene in person, we will continue to offer virtual programs for those that cannot come in person. So as Karen said, we'll just continue to fumble forward, right? Okay, Tina, you can take that away.
All right, thank you so much, Tane, and everyone loves your background. Even the water moving and the palm tree swaying.
Yes, it's my relaxation and stress reliever.
We all want to get fancier with those backgrounds. All right, thank you so much, Tane. And our next speaker is Danielle Wootton she's the Director of Strategic Initiatives with the Kansas City Shepherd Center. Danielle?
Hello, and thank everybody for participating and for this opportunity to come and talk and share with you. I'm going to talk about two of our programs. We have other programs, but talk about one that we created out of necessity because of COVID and S.P.E.D. started, and the other one we had to adjust, our Adventures in Learning program. So next slide. So we started the Phone Pal program, and I actually had an M.S.W intern, Allison Tilleton, last year who did a lot of research and a lot of looking into telephone reassurance programs. So we had some great information that we could really hit the ground running with this. And we were actually talking about starting this later in the year, but knew we had to get it going as soon as possible. So in April, we started our Phone Pal program, and that started so that we could help people feel connected that were feeling isolated. We knew that more people everybody was so isolated then. And so we used that information, we contacted our current program participants in our Meals on Wheels program, and we were getting more Meals on Wheels program participants. That program was really growing because more older adults were being isolated at home. And so the program would provide 2 15-minute calls a week to help with socialization and feeling connected to the community, and also a safety check. And so to get that going, we were really lucky. And next slide. To get volunteers, we got some media coverage of this program, and we got a tremendous response. If you think back to April, late March, early April, when everything was so heightened and everybody was just wondering how they could help, what they could do. More people were working from home. People weren't working and had opportunities to give. So we had a huge flood of people wanting to volunteer for this program, which was really exciting. And then we also we at one point wondered if we were going to have more people wanting to volunteer than wanting the program, but actually it all evened out very nicely. So volunteers, when someone was interested in volunteering, they were emailed an application. Everything was done remotely, and a background release screening, because all volunteers were background screened. We had volunteers were then emailed a volunteer handbook, and then they did a volunteer training over the phone. And it covered things as like, who are the participants, these older individuals you're going to be calling, conversation starters, how do you start a conversation with somebody that you don't know or keep a conversation going, boundaries, reporting concerns, confidentiality, accountability, the importance of following through with what you you say you're going to make these calls, following through with doing that. And there's a sample there of kind of the flyer we also put out, and we did some social media posts about it as well. Next slide. And then on the client process, we had some volunteers that volunteered to call our current Meals on Wheels clients and the new Meals on Wheels clients coming in, and to ask them if they were interested in receiving a friendly call twice a week. And we got a really good response from that. Then we started getting calls from word of mouth that we had this program. We did a little bit of social media, but we didn't do a ton of putting it out there. The criteria for Phone Pal was 55 years or older, that they live in the Kansas City metro area, and that was really interesting. We actually received a phone call from someone in Hawaii who had found us online somehow and wanted a Phone Pal. And we, after talking about it, decided that really we didn't know if there were issues or concerns, because this is also a safety check. We wouldn't be able to connect them with resources in Hawaii. We didn't know what those resources were. So we connected them with their area agency on aging in Hawaii, but decided to keep this metro-wide because we know this community and what's available. Homebound, and that they want a friendly call twice a week. So, and then we sent a flyer out also with the meals for our Meals on Wheels clients, but really it was the phone calls that got more people participating. Next slide. So to become a Phone Pal, and our volunteers who called out also completed this intake form, and it was completed over the phone. One of the important things we asked for, we got the normal demographic information, but then also emergency contact. So that if there was an emergency, if there was an issue, we knew who to contact for them. Days that they were not available, and the best time of day for calls. And for most of them, it was midday was really kind of the preferred time. And to make sure that they gave consent, because we were doing this all over the phone. So we made sure that they gave permission and understood that we were going to share their name and phone number with the trained and background screen volunteer, that they understood that the volunteer would be calling them twice a week, and that it was a social visit. This was not professional counseling or anything. It was just a social call. And that if we were unable to reach them, if there were issues, concerns with the person's health and safety, we would contact their emergency contact. So they understood that that was a process. And for many of them, that was a relief and a comfort to know that they would have that safety check. So next slide. The matching process, pretty much it was based on interests and time availability. And really the time availability was the key to that. With the conversation starters that we have, and with people tend to be able to find something to connect once they get to talking. And we've had some wonderful friendships develop over the phone. So when I would do the match, I would give the volunteer the client's phone number, and that they would set a day and a time for their first call. And then I would call the client and let them know the volunteer's name and the day and time that they would be calling. And both of them were told that when they had that first call, they would schedule their own first call, their schedule. So we didn't get into scheduling the day and time, but we wanted to make sure that they emphasized scheduling set days and set times that worked for both of them, so that it was, everybody knew what was coming. And also to, at the end of the call, to say, hey, we're scheduled to talk at 2 o'clock on Tuesday next. Does that still work for you? Next slide. So tracking and reporting and all that, we used a program called Jot Forms, and it's online, and there's a free and a paid version. We ended up going to the paid version just so it stores more data. But the form is online, so the volunteers, when I did the match, I also sent them an email with all the information and a link to a call log. And simply they just have to click on that link. It's very simple, really fast, and I encourage them all to do it right after they do their call. And so volunteer name, participant's name, date, duration of call, a short overview of the call. And for some, that means almost, a whole reiteration of the phone call. And for others, it's went well, or, talked about family, whatever it is. And then also, are there any concerns or need for referrals? And so when we know what's going on and we can help address those needs, when the volunteer submits the phone log, it gets emailed directly to me, so I can address any of those concerns or needs. If it's an emergency issue, then they're to call into the office and let me know, and we can address that. Haven't had that happen, knock on wood, fingers crossed, but have had concerns and referrals and things like that. So, all right, so that's kind of our Phone Pal program in a nutshell, and I'd be glad to share any other information with anybody along the way. Next, I want to talk about our Adventures in Learning program. If you could go to the next slide. Our Adventures in Learning program is one of our oldest programs that we've had, and there was typically 40 Fridays a year that they met. It was 4 10-week sessions, and they had classes all Friday morning and a lunch session, and that ended in March. So by June, we have a committee that helps plan. We put together some online classes, and we moved to Zoom and the pro version so we could go longer than 40 minutes for the classes. Technology was going to be an issue for some of our people, and we didn't want that to hinder people from connecting, because this is a group, we have 70 to 80 people participating in Adventures in Learning, and they develop such friendships and connections there. So we did Zoom meetings. We worked with Connecting with Good, or PCs for People. They actually gave us some computers that we were able to give out to our Adventures in Learning participants that needed them, and also one of our other program senior companions. But we were able to get them connected. We had a few volunteers that volunteered to go out and set up the computers if that was needed. A lot of people had family that could help them with setting that up. For those that didn't, we actually had volunteers that went out and did that and could show them how to use Zoom. We offered practice Zoom meetings beforehand, before classes, so we could set up a Zoom with them so they could see what was how it worked and ask questions and feel comfortable with it before they went into a class. Because I think a lot of it was just fear of using the technology and getting people past that fear. And what we've seen over time is more people, as this goes on longer, all this physical distancing, that the more need to connect and realizing I need to get on board with this. And one of the things that we're really realizing is that we don't just have to have local speakers now. We could get someone from anywhere. So that's going to be exciting, and we're looking at expanding that. We also realized that having lots of classes on Friday and just sitting in front of a computer one day a week was just a bit much. So we have Wednesday and Friday classes that we offer, and now we've been starting some small groups. So we had an art class that met at Adventures in Learning, and they are now starting to meet, and they're talking through now how that's going to look and what that's going to be look like. So that small group, we have another small group that a volunteer offered to set up, and he called people and got people that were interested in just having a social group, and they meet every week and they just say, what's been going on with you this week, or how are things going? So just having that connection, and I think we're going to be getting some more of those smaller groups going as well. So Next slide. Oh, here's our schedule. We do monthly schedule of classes. I send out, we weren't mailing the actual physical paper, but found a lot of our people, even though they had email and were getting an email, and it's easier to sign up for a class on email, they wanted the hard copy that they could physically look at. So we still mail that monthly, and we email it. And then I do weekly reminder emails as well. I send a confirming emails link every morning, or the morning before a class, just so people don't have to hunt for that link again. It's easy for them to find, and it reminds them, oh yeah, I've got that class today. We're not charging for classes online. Right now, we have asked our participants to pay their normal dues that they would, which was $20 for 10 weeks of classes. And we've never allowed costs to prohibit anybody from participating. So so that's gone well. We have, if speakers allow us, we record their sessions and we put them on our YouTube channel so people can see them later. Next slide. And that's what I have. I've been seeing questions pop up, but thank you. And I'll be glad to provide any information, other information anybody wants.
All right, thank you, Danielle. And now is time for questions and answers. We have had quite a few come through. Let's just go ahead and stay with Danielle for a little bit. A lot of questions coming in about technology and training. And can you address, Danielle, how you've helped to troubleshoot with technology challenges, and specifically, do any of the volunteers go to the homes?
Yes, we do have, we have one volunteer that goes to the homes, and she's someone who did a lot of our technology actually on site when we were meeting in person for Adventure. So she'd get the slideshows set up and all that, and very tech savvy, and everybody knows her and felt comfortable. They mask up and try to use precautions, but she did go into the homes for some people and help them set up. And others we could do over the phone. And what's funny is we had some people that we thought we were going to be going to set up a computer, and it turned out really they just needed some speakers or some little things like that, that it wasn't even, they just need, there was a small issue with their computer they needed help with. We also have an M.S.W student, Jose, right now, that is also, he's now going into the homes and has helped set up some computers and helped people as well.
Great. Well, we've all had problems with getting the right equipment, speakers and cameras and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Totally.
We can always ask our 12-year-old neighbors to help us, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Another question. Regarding programming for phone pals, on average, how much time does a staff person spend on coordinating the phone pals program?
It was a lot at first. I mean, it pretty much consumed mine and our volunteer managers' time for quite a while. It's leveled out now some. I would say probably a few hours, you know, maybe 10 hours a week. It's not huge. We have about 50 people in the program. Right now we're kind of at a steady flow, and there's not a lot of resource needs because we have a lot of ongoing things. So
when you started the Phone Pals program, did you do volunteer training one-on-one, or did you try to do it in a group video training session?
they were all done one-on-one over the phone. Our volunteer coordinator, actually, because I was busy getting the client signed up, so she took the whole volunteer part and did the volunteer training and everything. Bobby Halleck did that, and she did it individually over the phone with everybody, so they could ask questions.
Nice. But I can see where it could be a group training.
Yeah.
Okay.
We weren't as Zoom savvy at that time.
Let's see. One more question. Oh, do they receive the same phone pal each time?
Yes. So phone pal is assigned one person, or we have a few that have a couple of people that they call, but it is the same person, so they can develop that friendship and that companionship.
Okay, great. Yeah, and a lot of questions about technology, and I know that it was shared, PCs for People, KC is a good resource for that.
Definitely.
Okay. Back to a question for everyone. Are any of you working directly with libraries, and particularly in trying to address the physical distancing aspect of connecting people to programs? We'll start with you, Dianna. If you'll unmute yourself, are you working with libraries?
Yes, the volunteer coordinator, Patty Monaco, has been working with the library. They actually give computer training classes, so we hope to be able to do it that way. And for the part of the Healthy Living program, they're doing a Facebook book club that the library is taking an active part. They're going to get the books and help us get that together.
Okay, great. Tane, what about your programs working with the libraries?
Yeah, many of our partners work with libraries. In the past, they were implementation sites. So we were convening our in-person workshops at the libraries. But libraries have focused a lot on isolation as well. And so, yeah, they've been very helpful in promoting workshops and helping us to recruit participants. They too do not have a lot of in-person activities going on right now, but they have a vast amount of outreach to our community members. So I directly don't, like I said, I don't deliver the programs that often myself, but our partners, our array of partners and subcontractors do work directly with the libraries for that.
Okay. Karen, what about for the Ivanhoe area?
So Ivanhoe, even pre-COVID, was in the planning stages of working with the library to actually put a more of a virtual library inside the Ivanhoe neighborhood as part of our community kitchen, distance learning, teaching environment. So we're still now obviously more aggressively working with the library, but they were interested in putting a different kind of library into the Ivanhoe neighborhood. So we're still working towards that.
Great. And Danielle?
We are not right now, although I'm seeing that that's a resource that we should be tapping more into. So.
Okay. And Kathy, can you hear me? Are you unmuted? Kathy Armitage?
I'm here.
Yeah. Have you partnered with the library in any way with any of your programming?
Yes, our book club is still partnering with the library in getting books. Probably 4 to 6 months in advance, they'll pick out the books and the library will get them all together. And then our book club that we have, we'll do it that way. And then now they're currently meeting virtual. So they're doing little Zoom meetings themselves. But yeah, we do use the library every opportunity we can.
Okay. A question came by, Karen, does Ivanhoe have broadband internet for all of your residents?
I would say yes and no. We are a Google Fiber neighborhood. However, that does not guarantee that all of the residents have the equipment, the training, the comfort to be able to navigate technology. So we have our community engagement team is doing that assessment right now to make sure that everyone or as many households as possible have the equipment and have the training that they need to be able to successfully navigate the programming that we want to deliver to them.
Great. And a question for all of you is, how are you evaluating the impact of these programs and outcomes? And how are you providing feedback from your participants? Tane?
Okay. Well, our partners do it a little bit differently, each one, but they have instituted satisfaction surveys with feedback questions pointed towards that virtual environment. So like Parks and Rec has an online satisfaction survey that folks complete after they finish the program, where they give us the feedback on how things went virtually. And then the University of Missouri Extension also has an online version of that. And then we've offered a similar questionnaire that can be done either by mail, email, over the phone, any way that we can do that for the participants that can't get onto the online section or whatever to register for that post-survey. So yeah, we have survey questions that we offer.
Great. Anyone else like to address how they're evaluating their programs, particularly with these changes that you've had to transition?
Well, historically, we've done pre and post surveys. I think with the pandemic, one of the things we had to pivot or add to those surveys was our questions that are on a Likert scale, assessing safety and security.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something we are acutely aware of, particularly, of course, with seniors. So we've just integrated more of those types of questions into our pre and post surveys.
Okay. Anyone else want to address that question? Okay. All right, well, we know that that's going to be important and something you might, if you're not tracking and getting that feedback, it's important. I think there's going to be a lot of funding opportunities with everything we know and all the data we've heard about this week about the connection of social isolation and loneliness to social determinants of health. Okay, then we had a lot of great input back to let's all try to work on utilizing the term physical distancing versus social distancing. And we can start to do that through all our social media, our newsletters, our education, the way we talk to our clients, to our board members and our staff. So it sounds like everyone was really in agreement of trying to do that. I know the first time I heard that, I was like, yes, that's absolutely right. Let's hope this, really expecting that to take off. But it does seem everybody's sort of still using that term, social distancing. Okay, let's see. I saw really one good, interesting question that came in that some years ago, UMKC surveyed homebound seniors from Ivanhoe and in Overland Park, and found that seniors in Ivanhoe felt much less isolated and lonely than those in Overland Park. What happened in Ivanhoe to make seniors feel better? Karen, you want to talk about that?
Well, I think that goes back to Ivanhoe's history of engagement. We have always leaned on seniors for input and actually setting the strategic direction for Ivanhoe year to year. At the end of each year, we conduct feedback and input sessions, and that really sets the agenda for the upcoming year for staff. So I think, as you know, they've always felt involved and valued, and we were able to maintain our senior programming even in the midst of COVID, although it looked differently. So I think that's where that comment is coming from.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you so much. I think that we addressed most of the questions. Just to remind you that Tane wants to make an announcement about a virtual program delivery training.
Yeah, so Kathy put it in the chat a little earlier, but in case any of you missed it, Mark is going to be offering a virtual program delivery training on October 7th. And we have a panel of national and local presenters that will share lessons learned through COVID-19 on transitioning to virtual programs. And we'll share some of the best practices that we've developed on the design and implementation of the programs. There's no fee for the webinar, so you can participate for free. And we'll be sending out an announcement to everybody here that's participated in this session, as well as many others. So just be on the lookout. You'll get an announcement of that upcoming training on October 7th.
Great. Carmela, thank you. You will see on your page now that additional programming examples and resources are listed. We'd also like for you to tell us your ideas about programming. I wish we had more time to hear, but you can do that by using that URL down below to submit as many ideas as you'd like. And we'll compile them for all the conference attendees. We hope that you enjoyed this conference, this workshop today, and we hope that you will join us for the 2 remaining age-positive 2020 revision sessions listed on your screen. Resources to help you navigate through the pandemic will begin promptly at 9 a.m. And then the final session, Reframing Aging During COVID, is really going to be great, talking about ageism and how we can reframe ageism. So thank you, everyone, and have a good day, and go Chiefs, right? Thanks. Bye-bye.